And welcome back to Let's Make a Mini CTM. It's been a while since our last episode, I guess a week at this point. My schedule has been kind of inconsistent in general for my channel for the last couple of weeks, and I think that's something we should work on getting back into schedule. That way we can do 2 episodes of this per week and make progress, which we haven't done a huge amount of progress, but we've gotten some good design elements of the map done. And as you can see over here, we have a little special something we'll be adding into the map this episode. Our little rules board and a starting love chest. For you, those of you who have played through Apocalypse and Into a Nightmare, the starting love chest is kind of a little touch that I like to do to make sure the player has a bit of starting gear. Now it's not enough gear that the player is going to be able to go through a large amount of area without having to re-equip, supply. It's just enough to get the player into the area and from there find the loot that they need that they're going to continue the map with. So typically this is a rough layout similar to what Apocalypse and Into a Nightmare had. Into a Nightmare was a little bit different. There were 2 chests. One of the chests had tools and stuff, and the other one was very akin to this. So this is the general layout that I like to go. We have, a small assortment of wheat, a small assortment of bread, a stack of torches, 2 sets of armor, with mostly unique stats, except for the helmet, which is Prot 1. This is Prot 1 4 health, Prot 1 0.15 knockback resistance, which is about 15% knockback resistance. Protection 2, Protection 1, Featherfall 1. This one's new in comparison to Apocalypse and Into a Nightmare. I did a little bit of adjusting of the stats. It used to be just Featherfall 2, but I figured with this kind of gear, the big thing that I do with this starting love chest is I want to give the player options. They have 2 sets of gear, and the player gets the option of what set of gear do I want to use? What pieces of gear do I want to use? Do I want to go for more protection when it comes to my gear, or do I want to go for slightly less protection but have Featherfall to it? And this is one of those things where if we do testing and whatnot, we might bump that up to Featherfall 2, but we'll have to see. Then we have Protection 2 pants and Protection 1 with speed 15%. So I ended up taking this chest and duplicating it almost identical to what we had in Apocalypse. So in Apocalypse, which was the other, thematic map with only a singular type of mob, this one is only skeletons. So instead of doing the Bane of Arthropods, we'll end up doing Smite. So we have our Smite 3 Unbreaking 2 wooden sword with this one has the most durability because with Smite 3 and Unbreaking 2. Then we have a little bit less durability with Smite 4 and Unbreaking 1. And then the least durability out of the 3 with Smite 5. The big thing that I like to do with gear is there is pros and cons to it. So for example, you might have a piece of armor, something like some boots that give you a knockback resistance, but the downside to having boots like that is that it gives you slowness. Your movement speed is reduced. So I think that's one of the big things that we're going to try incorporating with this map that I really enjoyed from Into a Nightmare, and I think it will carry over into this map, is having gear that it's not always an obvious choice as to what piece of gear or what gear you want to use. You have options. You have decisions that you have to make. It's not just saying I have a Protection 2 body and I found a Protection 3 body. I'm gonna, there's a no-brainer obvious decision that I'm gonna switch over to that. Whereas maybe you have a Protection 2 body with plus 2 max health, whereas you find a Protection 3 body that might have some reduced movement speed. Now, you could go for the increased protection, but you lose a little bit of health, and you lose some movement speed. There's kind of this dynamic of you're choosing what you think will be best for you in a situation where it's not always the most obvious of decisions. So this is the kind of dynamic that I'm wanting to incorporate into this map, and we'll have to figure out what we're going to name our 5th map in the Monumental Victory series, which we've only released 2, and 2 of them, or 1 of them is in progress and one's on a hiatus, but this would be technically the 5th map that will get released, or the 5th named map in the series. So although my maps don't get released in the particular order that I make them, I try to be sequential with the order that they were designed. So I think Racked Apocalypse was number 2, and then Into a Nightmare is number 4, with Fractured Realms being number 3, I think, or vice versa, something like that. So this is our starting love chest, and we'll be copying that into the map here in a second. So one thing is I went ahead and I did a little bit of work, not much, but I did a little bit of work on the spawn area. I flattened out the ground here so it wasn't just random blockiness. So after flattening out the ground, it does make the area look a bit smaller. It did look a lot bigger when I had it not flat, but I think overall this is still going to be a good size for us in our endeavors. Now, this is not something I traditionally do, but it's probably something I should do, which is kind of doing a general layout of the area and figuring out where we want to put things. My traditional method of doing things is just kind of placing it and working around where I place things. So, I might place something here and do a whole bunch of stuff and then realize that maybe it's not the best there, or it's in the way of things and it causes problems in the long run. So I think we're going to do a bit of layout design today, maybe some carving out of things depending on how long this takes. But today I think, we haven't really done a whole lot of building or creating in the series. A lot of it's been design and just talking about how things were built. And I did get some comments regarding having not really built much, or for it being a, making of a CTM, mini CTM. We haven't really done a whole lot of making. So today was going to be kind of a layout day for the most part. That's going to be the primary goal of it. And then we'll, depending on how long this takes, we might go ahead and do some building of things, specifically things like the monument, and such like that. So I have my general spawn center here. This is what I like to use. This was in Racked Apocalypse. This spawn center right here is in Fractured Realms, and I figured it's kind of my signature spawn area center. I didn't use it into a Nightmare just because I didn't have a real spawn area / intro board, but I will be for this map, so I'm going to be using this as our traditional spawn center area. Now we do have a chest below here. I haven't added anything into there yet, but that will be our little secret. Our first secret of the map will be under here, much like I had in a Racked Apocalypse, where we had the Adventurer's short sword and the Skittering short sword and the Skittering long sword. We'll have something that's thematic to this map, where it'll be the something short sword and something long sword, and we'll be placing the pair underneath as our kind of first secret of the map, and they'll end up being more secrets, but a lot of those will probably not be done on screen, and will be done after we do our base building of the map. Like I mentioned in the first episode, or I believe I mentioned, the core part of the series is going to be building the map, designing out loot and mobs, and I think that's roughly the extent of it. Any placement of traps, loot chest, with the exception of a few, just for kind of thanks for you guys watching. In any loot traps, spawners are primarily going to be done off screen after we're done with the series, as a way to, even though you watch the creation of this map, you're still not going to fully know where things are when it comes to loot, where things are when it comes to spawners, and even what spawners are in particular areas. So that's one of the things I'm planning to do in order to make it so even though you've seen the creation of the map, you don't necessarily know everything about the map. You don't know where traps will be, or where loot will be, or what mobs will be in particular areas. You'll have a good idea, and there'll be some gameplay mechanics that you'll know just because we designed them and we set them up. But it leaves a little bit of that element of surprise for you guys to be able to play the map and enjoy it still. So overall, this is our spawn area. I think it's mostly done. I'll probably have to do a little bit of eroding out of the ceiling, but overall the around the rim of the ground is good. I think the walls are pretty good overall. So yeah, this will just be a bit of monotonous eroding of around the area just to make sure things feel a bit smoother. But we have a few things that I was wanting in the spawn area itself. So we have the monument. That's probably going to be one of the big things that we're probably going to want in the area. I debated on having an offshoot area, kind of like in Arachnopocalypse, that led to the wool area. But I don't know. I think for a map like this, it might be better just to have the wool area in spawn, so I don't have to worry too much about, having to build extra areas off of areas in order to have a spawn area. And the player will always know where it is, and will have an easy time accessing it. As regardless of what area you go to, you're always going to have to come back to the spawn area. So the monument is one particular area that we're going to want to add, and we might as well throw down a few signs to denote what we're wanting to add into this area. So first things first, we're going to want to add a monument area. After that, we're going to have villager traders. We're probably going to do 3 again, like we had in Arachnopocalypse. We'll have one trader that deals with foods and potions, and any kind of miscellaneous items. We'll have one that's going to deal with weapons and tools, if necessary for tools. And the third is going to deal with armor. So we're probably going to have some villager traders. We'll have to discuss a bit on how we plan to present the village traders, whether we're going to do much like Arachnopocalypse, where we just had a central area with villagers that couldn't move, or maybe we'll have buildings where the villagers are in. It's kind of like their little trading area. We're also going to want farms. These are so for the player, they're able to have an area where they can set up their own farms in order to harvest and farm food. For something like this, it's probably just a couple fields where there's water down and farmland. Maybe a chest that has maybe a hoe of some quality. And aside from that, I'm not sure if I'm going to put any basic food in it. We might leave it to the player exploring into the areas and finding food, either via zombie drops of getting a carrot or potato, or maybe there's chests within the areas that have the materials to start farming. Because you've got potatoes, you've got carrots, you've got wheat. You could do potentially watermelon. There's quite a few farms, even to some extent cocoa beans to make cookies, which are terrible foods, but it gives the player options. So some type of farms is what we're going to want in the area as well. I was also thinking of animal pens. So with this we have the possibility, for something like this, we would have the option of giving the player spawn eggs within areas of different animals. So, one area could potentially give, a spawn egg for a mushroom, and then you go into another part of the area and you get a spawn egg for a cow and a chicken, a pig, different types of spawn eggs. And I think this is something we might incorporate into the loot chests that are around areas, is giving these spawn eggs, and it allows the player to be able to set up their own little farms of food and stuff. And it's not like, what's the best way? Let's say it. It's not so much that we're giving it to the player because they're going to need it to harvest food. I'm thinking the map is going to be more like Arachnopocalypse in the sense where you get the supplies that you need to get food. However, there is the supplies there for those who aren't, I wouldn't say as skilled, but who aren't as CTM familiar, who have trouble sometimes in more difficult maps, because this map I'm shooting for a medium to hard difficulty. And even from looking at Arachnopocalypse, there were quite a few people that had problems in specific parts of the map. And it's not to say that they're bad, it's just that particular parts of the map were difficult, and players were more inclined to die in those parts of the map. Areas like, in Arachnopocalypse we had Spiral Complex. Spiral Complex was inherently a more difficult area, and it did have a lot of elements of it that were more difficult, and had the, could cause a player to die more so than, they might normally die in another area. So giving these players backup supplies that they can farm or harvest should they need it is a good option. I mean, it gives players who are newer to CTMs more chances to make mistakes, as they're not going to get penalized as much, because let's say you get some spawn eggs for a couple cows kind of thing, and you can put them in your pens. Now, you die and lose all your food. Well, you have the option of, you have some farms here where you can get some seeds, and you can, get a little bit of wheat, and then you go over to your pens and you start breeding your cows. Well, at this point, you can start getting, you effectively have an infinite source of food. And it's kind of like what I did with Murder Bridge in Arachnopocalypse, where I provided the player with swords and pickaxes. That way they didn't have to use their own. And there was enough there. I think it was 2 double chests full of them. So the player had more than enough supplies to make mistakes and continue on without being penalized. And it's kind of like the big reason why I had Titan spiders and Foul Aranea in Arachnopocalypse is, so long as you have one of those spawners, you have the potential to get all the loot back that you needed. Titan spiders gave you leather, which allowed you to get tier 2 leather, the upgraded leather from the traders, which, I think you got protection 1 or 2 on leather gear from trading in leather, which was like, double the normal leather amount give you enchanted leather. So it was like 8 leather give you enchanted boots, and so on and so forth. So, like, as long as you had the spawners around, you had the ability to recover from pretty much any amount of mistakes that you made. So kind of keeping that mentality in mind, having stuff like animal pens where we can give the player spawn eggs, they can store their animals, they can harvest them if necessary. It's just a kind of a redundant factor that would allow players to make mistakes. They're going to have to spend a little bit of time to recover, but they're able to recover from it. It's not like, well, I lost all my food, I can't do anything in this map, I quit. I've seen, and I've played plenty of maps, not on the Monumental Victory series, but in general, I've played, and this was more so way back in the day, not so much in the nowadays, but it's like, I've played older maps way back in the day where I had lost all of my gear, or lost all of my food, lost all my weapons and armor, and there was really, I couldn't go through areas anymore because either the mobs hit too hard, or there were too many mobs, or I just didn't have the supplies to deal with the mobs anymore, and ended up quitting. Well, like with this, if you give the player the supplies they're going to need and the options or ability to resupply indefinitely should they lose all of their stuff, it's more of a thing that allows people to continue playing it even if they make a lot of mistakes. So someone who is newer to CTMs might be able to continue playing in the map should they lose all their stuff because they have the way and the means to recover from it. Now, that's not to say that all players are going to be smart enough to take advantage of this, but should they take advantage of it, they have the means to be able to continue on even through mistakes and such. So, animal pens. That's my thoughts on the animal pens and how we're going to incorporate animals for the map. I was initially thinking of maybe doing something where we have wild animals in the areas, and it would be the responsibility of the player to, herd them back to their pen area. But that's never really fun. Trying to get a mob, coax a mob back to your base or to a particular area is always a task in itself where it's never fun. So I think just incorporating spawn eggs into the areas might be good. A thought was, now I did see this in a map that I played on Livestream a long time ago, was potentially handing out custom spawners. And with 1.8, this is a lot easier. A lot easier to do, but having custom spawners themselves that the player can find in chests and place down, that might give particular things like a custom cow spawner. Maybe it's hard to get to, but once you get it, you're rewarded with having infinite cows for food and leather. There could be custom spawners for pigs and chickens and such. So that is a thought as well. I'm interested to hear what you guys think about this, whether you find it would be better to provide the player with custom with spawner eggs and allow the player to build out their own pens or fill out their own pens, or provide the player with custom spawners, which with custom spawners we have the options of giving custom loot mobs that the player can in turn create their own farms over in their base. So, for example, say we had, say this was Arachnopocalypse, for example. We have the Foul Aaron, or let's go with the Titan Spider. Titan Spider provides the player with, I think it was 24 leather or something like that. It gave some amount of leather, and I think that was the only custom item on it. But say, for example, we had the option to give the player a custom spawner that spawned these loot mobs and allowed the player to create their own farms and place down these spawners in order to be able to effectively harvest them. This would obviously not be something that the player would get towards the beginning of the area, but would, battle towards and maybe could find in a wool particular area or near a wool. But it would be something that would be fortified and protected very well. So we have two options that I would like to get your guys' opinion on, of whether A, you guys think it would be more suited to have custom, or not custom, but spawn eggs of different neutral mobs in the map, or whether you think it would be better to have custom spawners that provide these neutral mobs, and the possibility of having these custom spawners that the player can place down to create their own loot farms. So that is a potential option, or the two potential options that I'm thinking of, and I'd be interested in getting your guys' opinion on this and seeing what you think. Aside from that, the last thing I can think of for the area the spawn area that we're definitely going to want is entrance ways to areas. These are going to be custom entrance ways that will be specific and thematic to the area. So say we'll do it in these three directions. Let's grab a red block, and I'm going to be picky about this and do it at a 90-degree angle from something like that. As we're starting our layout now, I think this will work. We'll use different colored clay blocks for our layout to kind of denote where we're wanting stuff. So we're going to have custom entranceways that will lead into the particular areas. So we'll have one over here, one over here. These are going to be, as I was mentioning, something that's very thematic to the area. So for example, the pirate ship area. The pirate ship area is going to have a half-broken ship, so broken from the mid of the ship all the way to the front, and it will be embedded into the wall. So there might be a little dock that leads over to, the pirate ship. And another thing I'm thinking of is having a stream of water going around the area. Maybe not around the whole area, but partially around the area at the very least. We'll also have to figure out, the other thing we're going to have to figure out is, we still have to figure out the third area. I did get some feedback from you guys in regards to ideas about the third area. I'm going to have to review them and decide from there, and if anything, create an idea for that. But first things first, let's design out some of the positionings for the various things. So these three sections right here are going to be our entranceways to the areas. Now, as I was mentioning with the pirate ship, so we'll have a embedded half a pirate ship in here. The back half that's towards the area would be kind of broken, corroded, and would have some entrance way into it, either via a dock. Maybe there's as I was saying, a river or stream that cuts around here. This probably have to be pretty thick. And then there's a little dock or something that could lead up, dock / staircase / bridge that would lead up into it, and then it would lead off into the area. And again, like the catacombs, it would be some type of ruins that leads into the catacombs. Okay, so that gives us an idea of where we want to place our entranceways. We have animal pens. I think a lot of the other stuff that is not related to these particular areas is probably going to be towards this back half right here. There will be some stuff around the outside here. I'm probably going to incorporate some trees into the initial spawn area. Just for the player to be able to have an initial starting source of wood. Now, whether these are just kind of sticky trees, where it's like, not sticky like things stick together, but stick as in like a Minecraft stick, or it could just be trees like this, even like that, where it's a tree without its branches and leaves. I haven't decided yet, but I know I did it in Arachnopocalypse, I did it in Into a Nightmare. I think giving the player some starting supplies like this is always a good thing, and it gives players options, like I said with the chest up there. So giving the player trees gives them the options of being able to create some starting tools, should they want, like a pickaxe or an axe, shovels. They can create extra swords. So we'll probably we'll have some trees around the general area. And back here we'll probably do our farms and monument and stuff. And I think along the lines of us doing these kind of perpendicular and symmetrical around the area, we might as well set up the monument in a similar fashion. So, in general, the monument is going to consist of... It's kind of funny because it makes it feel not like a mini CTM at this point, but the monument is essentially it's either going to contain 3 or 9 items on it. So I think it's going to be all 9 in total, more or less. So the idea that I was thinking is it would be something very similar to how I handled it in Into a Nightmare. So Into a Nightmare, this is the kind of design. Where is it? This is kind of the design I used for Into a Nightmare. It's a very simplistic design, but it does give you an idea of where it is, where blocks go. The only upgrade and improvement that I can think of adding to it, which I definitely think I will do, is adding something along the lines of this red wool. So the player knows that the red wool goes here, and there's a good chance that they'll probably end up breaking this and placing it. That's where at least my watch-throughs of people who played Into a Nightmare, they kind of figured out that's where they're going to put it. Now, as I was saying, the map is either going to contain 9 or 6, or not 9, 9 or 3 different wools. As I was mentioning, I was thinking of having 3 wool areas, 3 areas within each area, and the easiest thing to do is probably just going to be each of those particular parts is going to be a wool of its own. So how do we upgrade this monument that I was wanting to use to have a 3-person? I think in the long run, we'll just have to get rid of these. I think in the long run, something like this, or this maybe. Let's get some. It's also a matter of figuring out what wool we want to use for the monument, if we're doing a 9 wool monument. I'm thinking maybe orange, magenta, light blue, orange, magenta, light blue. We could also do, for the hardest difficulty area, which will probably be the 3rd area, we could do green, red, black. Green, red, black. And then for the medium area, we could do pink, gray, light gray? Or gray, light gray, cyan? Let's try that. Something like that? Yeah. I think we could do that. Okay, so let's say green, okay, cyan. So, how do we want to design this to be? Light gray. Okay. So let's see, what can I do? Let's get some staircases. That. I think I might need to push that out to 1. Come on. It's a little bit of free building, because I'm not sure how I would want to incorporate this. I think, oh no, I don't want that. Maybe one more in, like I initially had it. Okay, I think this. Yeah, I'm liking that. Okay. Something like... Yeah, there we go. Something like that. We need some glass. Gray. Light gray. Cyan. Gray. Light gray. Cyan. Do this. Okay, so we have gray wool, light gray wool, cyan wool. So something like that, I think. You know, it's a very simplistic, minimalistic monument, but it does have a unique touch to it, and I think it could be good. Now, I'm not going to build these out at the moment. It's probably something we can do off screen, but it will be in this shape, I think. Let me know what you guys think about this, whether it would probably be better to have a more traditional monument where we just have a straight line with signs that denote where wool is supposed to go, or maybe a unique design like this. It's kind of a hybrid of a pseudo-hybrid that reminds us of Into a Nightmare. I'm kind of liking this, and I think this could work well. But I'd be interested to get you guys' thoughts. We could also always do... well, I don't know if I'm going to like this. Gray. Oh, that's cyan. Cyan. Oh, no. I was thinking of putting stained clay under here, but that's definitely not going to look very good. Alright, so this is what I'm kind of thinking for our monument area. We'd probably essentially just... Actually, you know what? Let's just do it. Copy. Copy. We can expand that to 2. So 2. 2. Yeah. Expand 1. Let's go like... Copy. We can... Oh. It's going to have green, red, and black. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try this. Rotate 90. Paste. Oh yeah. That could be good. Green wool. Red wool. Black wool. And green, red, black. I'm liking that. If anything, we can end up moving it in due time. But it's 1 over 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. Something like this. Rotate 180. Paste. Okay. Orange wool. Or, let's spell that right. Orange wool. Magenta wool. Light blue wool. Okay. Grab those colored glasses real quick. Orange, magenta, light blue. I kind of like them. I think that will work quite well. And if anything, we can put glowstone, maybe right there. Maybe some little design around this general area, but I think this might be a good wool monument setup. We could always move it in tighter, but I think I'm going to leave it like this for now. We can always move it in more later. But there is our monument. We have village traders, farmland, and animal pens left to design out or plan out. I don't know if I'm going to put houses around. This is not something that I initially thought of. It could be an idea to put houses around. Should we want to have kind of a bed-based area or a bed-based place? Let's just put houses for bed. We'll have to think about that and decide what we're going to want to do with that. But also, we need, as I was saying, a villager trader area, a farm area, and animal pens. Animal pens and farm area are probably going to be relatively close to each other. Do we want to have... We could potentially have little pathways that lead to the various areas. So say we have something like this. So some fun commands we could do with NBT, or not NBT editor, but MC, or World Edit, is we could do a set grass and gravel command. This, and having it like this is going to set 50% grass and 50% gravel. It might be a little bit more gravel than I want for the pathway, at least for now. So let's do something like 75% grass, 25% gravel. Do it again. Oh. Okay, let's up the values a little bit more. We'll do 60% grass, 40% gravel. Now this works in the principle of just random. Each block has a random chance to be one or the other, depending on the 1 to 100 rule. So as it states in the command, each block has a 60% chance to be grass and a 40% chance to be gravel. We'll go with something like that for now. So we can have our initial area, maybe have some little pathway that leads over to where we want. We could also put some little... I'm probably doing a little bit more building than I wanted to for this episode. Where's the fence? Fence post right here. But at least getting a few of the things built out might be okay. Okay. So we could also have the option to do setting up some little street lights. We're going to want the area to be more well lit. We'll also put lights on the ceiling when we get the chance. But for now, having these street lamps around will decrease. Actually, no, we don't have natural spawns anyways. But it's more of a thematic kind of thing anyways, or a not thematic, but an aesthetic kind of thing anyways. We want trapdoors. This is something that I have done in Fractured Realms Into a Nightmare. I also did it on the single-player hardcore series, Chain World, the design that I used. And we want black carpets. So I like to build my little street lights, street lanterns, like this. Makes it look lantern-y. So this is another thing we can add along the edges. We could also have pathways that lead over to the various area entranceways as well as the different plots. And another thing that, this is good thing for this is that it also kind of gives player directions of, where they could or should head to. We have a pathway goes over here. We'll have a pathway that leads to each individual area. For some reason, should they not know exactly where they need to go. And then even off of these areas, we can have little pathways that lead over to the various things. So like say, let's do, and I think I threw that. Let's use orange wool, or not orange wool, orange stained clay as our indicator of where we're going to want to have farm areas. Something like over here. We can have a general farm over here. I want to build it out, but I'm not going to. Let's say, let's stack that 4 in that direction. 4. 4. Okay, so that right there is a farm in itself. And we can end up just moving this around should it not fit within where we want it to. But there is a general farm layout right there. We could probably put a few around it just to have the player have the options of where they want to plant it. You know, should they want to plant some potato farms and carrot farms and wheat farms. Not that I think the map's going to be long enough, but it gives options. Okay. Let's just copy here. Copy. We can go over here. Paste. Let's move in a little more. Let's also learn how to spell. Undo. Alright. Something like that. We can also always do could copy this. Paste here. Alright, and so we give the player 4 farms. So we have some farms set up for the player. Let's do something similar to this over where we're going to want our pens. We could set up a little area for the player to have 4 pens set up. Copy. Copy. Okay, so we have our pen area, or not our pen, our farm area set up. Let's go over this direction. Now I could be a little OCD to some extent about where I place these to make them kind of symmetrical, but I think something like that will probably be okay. Let's quickly do this. We'll highlight the area, and I'm going to change those colors. The pens we're going to put as a purple, which is purple. 159.10. Replace 159 with 159.10. Okay, so we have our pens. We have our farm areas. We could also set up, we're going to need our villager trade area. We'll do it over here. Now again, I'm going to just put markers for the general area where we're going to do it. I'm not going to place or work on any villagers just yet because it'll be around here. I'm not sure how we want to plan to do this, and this is where some more feedback from you guys is going to come into hand of, do you think it would be better for us to have villagers that are constrained within their own individual buildings? So think of like a villager hut. Think of, let's say, what map was that? We did it in, I can't think of the name of it. It was the achievement map we did, the adventure map where we had to get all the achievements. And it expanded the world border. I don't remember the name of it. So we have the option. It's probably something I shouldn't have forgot, but I did. So we have the option of doing something like we did in that with our little villager, where we could have a little hut. Let's do something like this. One, two, three. Okay. Oh. Let's say like. I'm trying to remember how the general layout of it. I think there was some. We had some wooden stairs here. There we go. That looks more akin to what I had. And this, let's just move one. Move one. Okay, yeah, this is looking more and more. I think I need to go up one more, but this is looking more and more like I originally remembered from there. We'll do something like that. No. We'll do something like that. But anyways, you get the kind of idea. We could have potentially have a little hut for where our villager is, or each individual villager. Or we have the option of having, much like Arachnopocalypse, where they just kind of all stood out and kind of did their own thing. They didn't move in Arachnopocalypse just to make sure that the villagers didn't end up killing themselves somehow, and the player being punished for not having the villagers secured. I think those are both options, so I'd be interested to hear what you guys think and which one you think would be better off. Yeah, something like that. It's looking pretty close to how I had it in the map. I wish I could remember the name of it, though. I'm sure I'm going to get a comment in regards to the name. But it was like this. There we go. So we could potentially have a little hut for the villager like this, where each one would have their own name. You know, this would be... Oh, let's pull up a sign real quick. We could have Crazed Trader Armor. And then we can have a Crazed Trader for food and miscellaneous. We could have a Crazed Trader for weapons and tools. I think we need a glowstone up here, though. Yeah, something like that. Well, you can't have everything nice, apparently. Not when it comes to Minecraft. But you get the idea. So we could have potentially something like this. Yeah. So that's an idea, something like this, or we can have a centralized area, much like Arachnopocalypse, where just the villagers are there, but they don't move because their movement speed has been set to 0. So that's another opinion-based thing from you guys. We could rebuild these in a much better looking design, and have a few of those around that have all the villages, or a villager in each one. But that is definitely an idea. Now, there's not really much I could build out just yet, or that I probably have time to build out, because I've probably been blabbering on for a while now. It's probably about time to end it for today. But for next time, Definitely give me some feedback on what you guys think about the various questions that I gave out. And I'm hopefully going to do a bit more research for next time, and I'm hoping to build a pirate ship out for next time. We'll definitely have to see how that turns out, but that's what I'm hoping to shoot for, is that I'll do a bit more research, and then next time on screen we'll do a little construction of a pirate ship. We can cut it in half and insert it into the wall, one of the sections of the wall, and go from there. But that's going to do it for today, guys. Thanks for listening to my ramblings about map making and the construction of this map. I'm still going to have to put our rule board in here, which might go over on this side. But that's something we could do next time or off screen. Thanks for listening to my ramblings. Hopefully you're enjoying the series. And as always, if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or feedback, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. As always, this is Rock, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye!